I'm disappointed because we Jamaicans don't value it.
Whether you're familiar with reggae music or Jamaica, there's one name that cannot be overlooked. That name is none other but Peetah Morgan, a voice that carried both power and soul. He rose from a family deeply rooted in music to become one of the most recognizable figures in modern reggae. As the brightest star of the Morgan Heritage Band, he stood out at every point. His sudden death in February 2024 caused one of the most heartfelt global mourning events the music industry has ever seen. Within the short span of his lifetime, he accomplished feats that many known reggae stars took longer to achieve. With these accomplishments came envy, gossips, feuds, and toxic dramas from other artists that many people were never aware of. Just before his untimely end, Peetah revealed 5 artists he hated the most. And in this video, we'll be diving into the bitter stories of these artists and him. So, sit tight and watch till the very end. Starting with number 1, Don Carlos.
Don Carlos is the lone Jamaican on that festival.
Far back in the 1970s, Don Carlos, born Euvan Spencer, began carving his name into reggae history. He first rose to prominence as one of the founding members of Black Uhuru, a group that would later go on to become a global reggae powerhouse. With his distinctive high-pitched melodic voice and his smooth, conscious lyrics, Carlos quickly became a recognizable figure in the Jamaican music scene. After stepping away from the group, he pursued a solo career that produced hits like I'm Not Getting Crazy, Dice Cup, and Plantation. By the late 1980s and into the 1990s, Don Carlos was celebrated not just in Jamaica, but also internationally, performing across Europe, Africa, and North America. He became known as one of reggae's reliable voices, a cultural ambassador who always represented Jamaica on festival stages at home and abroad. During an interview, Peetah shared that Carlos was a good example of favoritism, inequality, and the unfair system that held other artists back. Year after year, his name appeared on the lineups, often as a headliner, while other voices equally talented and sometimes even more popular on the streets, were sidelined. Peetah emphasized that his issue wasn't with Carlos's talent. He openly admitted that Carlos had a unique sound. The real issue, in his eyes, was how the Jamaican government seemed to repeatedly favor him, almost as though he was the only reggae artist worthy of showcasing on national platforms. Peetah pointed to events like the 1992 Independence Festival, the 1995 Reggae Sunsplash, and the 1998 Jamaica Cultural Development Commission (JCDC) celebrations, where Carlos's name was consistently featured as a marquee act. Countless times, Peetah said, the man was there while many of us were left waiting. How can you build a fair music culture when the same face is pushed forward every year? This favoritism, in Peetah's opinion, gave Carlos an unfair edge in international recognition and bookings. While Morgan Heritage had to build their reputation through constant touring, private promoters, and grassroots fans, Don Carlos had the luxury of government-backed exposure. He described Carlos as the chosen one of Jamaica's cultural institutions, a man who, whether knowingly or not, benefited from a system that excluded others. It didn't help that Carlos himself brushed off the criticism in an interview. When asked about how he felt about being always chosen repeatedly at the expense of other artists, Carlos responded with an annoying pity party comment.
I feel for them, but I feel it deep inside,
Peetah found this answer quite infuriating. To him, Carlos's words showed a lack of awareness, or worse, a refusal to acknowledge the privilege he enjoyed. Fast forward to 2008, when Morgan Heritage had just wrapped up a grueling tour across Africa and were hoping to be part of Jamaica's Independence Festival lineup upon their return. Despite their rising international reputation, their names were absent. Yet once again, Don Carlos stood at the center of the stage. Fans and journalists questioned why Morgan Heritage, hailed abroad as the royal family of reggae, were not included, but the government offered no answers. Even after Morgan Heritage won the Grammy for Strictly Roots in 2016, that wasn't enough to make him forget how Carlos has been favored at the expense of young, talented artists like him. His resentment towards Carlos remained, and he spoke about it at every opportunity he got. Number 2. Damian Marley. Whispers in the music industry have a way of spreading faster than wildfire, and Peetah Morgan knew this better than anyone. Among the many names that crossed his path, Damian Marley stood out, not as a brother in reggae, but as someone Peetah believed had deliberately tried to tarnish his reputation. The issue between them dates back to the early 2000s, a time when Morgan Heritage had cemented their place as global representatives of reggae. The band was touring heavily across North America, Yet, just when they were anticipating the kind of success they've always desired, damaging rumors began to circulate in Jamaican press and music circles. Rumors that Peetah and members of Morgan Heritage had been deported from the United States. Peetah explained that the rumors weren't just hurtful, they were devastating. In an industry where credibility meant everything, deportation carried the weight of scandal. The story found legs quickly, and soon promoters, journalists, and even fans were asking uncomfortable questions. It didn't take long before Peetah heard where the whispers had started. Fingers pointed at Damian Marley, the youngest son of Bob Marley, who by then was emerging as a powerful voice in reggae's new generation. According to Peetah, Damian had not only repeated the rumor, but actively spread it within industry circles, ensuring it reached influential promoters both in Jamaica and abroad out of jealousy. Imagine waking up one morning, Peetah said, and finding out someone you once greeted with respect is now pushing lies that could destroy your career. The alleged motive behind Damian's actions was even deeper. Peetah believed it was an attempt at sabotage, an intentional move to weaken Morgan Heritage's growing dominance and create space for Damian's own rise. The idea of deportation painted the Morgans as unstable, unreliable, and unfit for international stages, while Damian stood as the polished heir to the Marley legacy. Here's where the drama got worse. In the summer of 2002, when Morgan Heritage was scheduled for several shows across the U.S., promoters hesitated, some even pulling back until official clarifications were made. Though the band managed to salvage their tour, the damage to their image lingered. Peetah, who valued honor and credibility, never forgave what he saw as a calculated betrayal. In an interview, Peetah's words carried the sting of unresolved anger. He didn't mince words about the impact Damian's alleged actions had on him. He emphasized that the rumor wasn't just an attack on him personally, but on his entire band, his family, and their legacy. Damian, on his part, never confirmed or denied the allegations. The bitterness between them was obvious. While both men continued to perform on global stages, rarely were they ever seen sharing the same bill. Promoters and fans speculated about the silence, often linking it back to the deportation rumors. In Peetah's mind, Damian's actions could have jeopardized everything he and his siblings had worked tirelessly to build if it wasn't handled well, and he hated him for that. Number 3. Dawn Penn. In the early 1960s, Penn started her journey into reggae music under the mentorship of producers like Coxsone Dodd and Prince Buster. She recorded several songs during that period, but it was her 1967 track You Don't Love Me that would later define her. After stepping away from the industry in the 1970s, she stunned the world with a powerful comeback in 1994 when she re-recorded the classic hit as You Don't Love Me, No No No. The song became an international success, charting across Europe and the US, and securing her a permanent spot as one of reggae's most recognized female voices. Despite limited output compared to her male contemporaries, Penn's single hit was enough to carry her legacy worldwide. Peetah revealed that he used to be a die-hard fan of Penn. As a matter of fact, she admired her strength and her reputation as one of the very few talented women in reggae music. However, something happened that changed his thoughts about her. In 2004, when Morgan Heritage planned a massive anniversary concert in Kingston, the event was more than another stage. It was a carefully curated show meant to honor reggae's past while highlighting its present torchbearers. To make that vision complete, he reached out personally to Dawn Penn, believing that her presence would be a powerful link between generations. Having Penn stand with Morgan Heritage would not only thrill fans, but also send a message of unity in Jamaican music. At first, Penn seemed receptive. She agreed to the idea, and the promotion began with her name attached as one of the night's highlights. Posters were printed, fans buzzed with excitement, and Peetah was certain that the collaboration would become a historic moment. Then came the silence. Calls went unanswered, commitments wavered, and in the days leading up to the event, there was still no confirmation from her. On the night of the concert, while the crowd roared for Morgan Heritage and other performers, Dawn Penn was nowhere to be found. She had not only missed the show, but had also failed to give any explanation or apology. For Peetah, the disappointment was very deep. Fans had purchased tickets, expecting to see the legend behind You Don't Love Me, No No No, and her absence left him feeling exposed to criticism. She let him down, and she let the people down. The situation grew worse when rumors surfaced that Penn had chosen to perform at a private event the same night. Whether or not those rumors were true, they solidified Peetah's belief that she had deliberately sidelined his show. After that night, Peetah never saw Dawn Penn in the same light again. It was this experience that fueled his resentment, and why, despite her legendary status, Dawn Penn remained one of the few names he openly admitted to hating. Number 4. Protoje. Protoje is one artist that Peetah couldn't help but address as taunting. Born O.J. Ken Olivier in 1981, Protoje rose to prominence in the 2010 seconds as a leading figure of the reggae revival movement. With hits like Who Knows featuring Chronix, Rasta Love with Kai Manny Marley, and his Grammy-nominated album A Matter of Time, 2018, Protoje built a reputation as a socially conscious artist. He became known not just for music, but for sharp commentary on politics, culture, and the reggae industry itself. That sharpness, however, is what drew him into Peetah Morgan's crosshairs. The tension began around 2015, when Protoje publicly criticized Morgan Heritage's musical style in an interview. He stated that the group was stuck in a cycle of recycling old formulas, and he questioned whether Peetah and his siblings were doing enough to represent the new direction reggae was taking. It wasn't the first time younger artists threw shade at older legends, but coming from Proto, the words were uncalled for. Peetah saw the comments not as constructive criticism, but as a deliberate jab meant to discredit decades of hard work. He fired back in his own interview, saying that Protoje was nothing more than a local musician who has lived all his life in Jamaica. The statement was heavy with implication. Peetah was pointing out that while Morgan Heritage had taken reggae global, performing in Europe, the US, Africa, and South America, Protoje was still largely rooted in local circuits, his name not commanding the same reach on international stages. By 2016, the feud had spilled into conversations across reggae circles. Fans of Protoje defended him as brave for speaking up, while supporters of Morgan Heritage saw his remarks as disrespectful toward elders who had paved the way. Peetah, however, refused to let the issue go quietly. In another interview, he stressed that Morgan Heritage had been carrying reggae to international audiences since the 1990 seconds, long before Protoje even recorded his first single. "Respect is non-negotiable," Peetah said bluntly. The clash revealed more than just a personal disagreement. It exposed the generational divide in reggae music, the older generation that believed in tradition, family bands, and heavy touring versus the younger revivalists who sought to push boundaries and craft modern identities. Protoje embodied the boldness of the new school, while Peetah embodied the legacy of the old guard. Despite the seriousness of the feud, the two never escalated it into physical confrontation. Still, the bitterness lingered. Peetah was especially offended that someone he saw as inexperienced on the world stage would openly diminish his artistry. Meanwhile, Protoje doubled down, saying in 2017 that reggae needed fearless voices to keep it alive, a statement many interpreted as another shot at the Morgans' conservative style. Even years later, the bad blood was never fully resolved. Whenever Peetah spoke about industry critics, Protoje's name would resurface. People close to Peetah said that he usually referred to Protoje as a younger artist whose voice had crossed the line of respect, and that made the sting unforgettable. Number 5. U-Roy. According to Peetah, U-Roy did not fully accept him or Morgan Heritage as authentic reggae artists, and it boiled down to where Peetah came from. Having been born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Peetah spent much of his early life outside Jamaica, absorbing influences from American gospel, R&B, and hip-hop before committing himself fully to reggae. To reggae purists like U-Roy, this upbringing meant Peetah lacked the lived experience of Jamaica's social and cultural struggles, which they felt was essential to shaping a true reggae identity. In 1999, during a backstage exchange at Reggae Sumfest, while Morgan Heritage was being praised internationally for their hit Don't Haffy Dread and winning over fans in Africa, Europe, and America, U-Roy reportedly dismissed their success as foreign reggae. He was said to have remarked that artists who didn't breathe and bleed Kingston could never carry the torch of roots music with the same credibility. Peetah, already battling criticisms from sections of the Jamaican press who viewed Morgan Heritage as Americanized reggae, was deeply hurt. He revealed that U-Roy's words were more painful than any critic's review because they came from someone he had admired for decades. "All I wanted was embrace," Peetah shared, "but he didn't see me as part of the soil." Quote. Throughout the early 2000s, Peetah carried that sting. He believed there was always a shadow of doubt cast by veterans like U-Roy. At one point, Peetah admitted he hated the way U-Roy reduced his journey to geography, ignoring the sacrifices he and his siblings made to represent reggae across the globe. Peetah contrasted the treatment he got from some elders in reggae, singling out U-Roy as a man who refused to embrace him because of his American upbringing. The irony, Peetah said, was that Morgan Heritage was doing what U-Roy had once done, taking reggae to new heights. U-Roy remained one of the people who denied Peetah a sense of belonging in the very culture he had dedicated his life to honoring, and he just couldn't get it off his chest. Let's know your thoughts in the comment section. Subscribe to this channel for more videos like this, like and share.